All right, well, happy Monday. Welcome back from the weekend. So today, guys, what we're doing is learning about 13.2, and we're learning about how to find the slope of a line. And our goal today is just to be able to describe that slope of a line. So a definition of slope. Slope is the way to describe the steepness of something. So let's get that definition written in there. It's the slope is the way to describe the steepness of something such as a ramp or a hill. So slope is something you've used quite a bit before. When you go sledding, you'd be looking for a hill with a big slope, right? So that you can go faster for longer. Okay, so let's take a look and imagine that each one of these colored lines is a ramp. Explain why the red line is steeper than the blue line. So why is this red line steeper than the blue line? So we might look at things and say, well, it's going higher, faster, right? So if this is the height of the line and this is the amount of time that it takes to get there, this red line is going higher, faster. Now it looks like eventually this blue line will also get as high as the red line, right? If I kept going, it could get as high as that red line, but it's going to take longer for it to get there. Whereas this one is going to go up faster. This one is just going to take longer. Eventually it would get there, but it would take longer. So when we think of steepness, we're thinking that it can the red line, really it should say the red line. So red line is going higher, faster. Okay, so let's take a look at the definition of slope. The slope of a line is a way to describe the steepness of a line and the direction of a line. So we're going to put in here direction. So the slope of a line is the way to describe its steepness and its direction. So there are 4 ways to describe the slope of a line. The first way is a positive slope. And that's when the line rises from left to right. So just like we read a book, we read a page, we read words from the left side of the paper to the right, we do the same with lines. We go from the left side of the graph, so here's the left side of the graph, and we go to the right. And if from that left side the line is going up, then it's a positive slope. And so then similarly, if from the left side the line is going down, then it's a negative slope. And then if we have a line that from left to right is straight, that means there's no slope. And the math term for that is a zero slope. It has zero slope. And then when we have a vertical line, meaning a line that goes up and down, we're calling that an undefined slope. All right, on our next page, we have this oval, this empty oval, and it's called Mr. Slope Guy. And so Mr. Slope Guy is a way that a couple of the math teachers have developed, and you'll probably see it online if you were to Google it as well. But it's a way to help us remember those directions. So the ups, the downs, positives, negatives, etc. So we can draw a face, and that face will help us to remember the directions of slopes. So for example, in his left eye, if we have a slope that from the left side to the right side is going up, like that, then it's a positive slope. And likewise, if we have a slope that from left to right is going down, then it's a negative slope. So that takes care of our 2 eyes, positive and negative. And then if we have a slope that goes up and down, That is an undefined slope. So we use a little U for its nose if it's going up and down. And if we have a slope that's going from left to right, we call that a zero slope. So we put 2 zeros at the end. All right, so that's Mr. Slope Guy. Well, Mr. Slope Guy is just meant to be a helpful tool to help us remember and visualize those slope directions. All right, so now we're going to describe the slope as positive, negative, undefined, or zero from these graphs here. So let's take a look at this first one. So we have a slope that is going from the left side of the graph. Remember, we always start on the left side of the graph, and it is going down. Now, sometimes what I do, it helps me remember, is on the left side of the graph, I'll draw a little person. Here's Mr. Slope Guy. Hi. And he's going to have to go down. So then I know that it is a negative slope. All right, so on graph B, if on the left side of my graph, I draw Mr. Slope Guy. Hello. And he's not going to go anywhere, right? That's a zero slope. All right, and then over here, Mr. Slope Guy, hello. And Mr. Slope Guy is going to have to walk up this line, so it's a positive slope. And then this one, you could kind of put your guy anywhere. But here we go, Mr. Slope Guy, and that's a straight up and down line, and that's a vertical one. And this one, I think the easiest way to remember is just thinking of Mr. Slope Guy with that undefined nose, that U right there. So it is undefined. And that's probably going to be your trickiest one to remember, undefined. But if you can get those other three, then that last one is just sort of process of elimination. All right, and then let's take a look at our last two here. So again, I'm going to draw Mr. Slope Guy, if that helps me. And I see him on the left side of the graph, and he's going to have to go up, so that means it's a positive slope. Remember, if Mr. Slope Guy has to walk up, it's positive. And then right here, if Mr. Slope Guy has to walk down, it's negative. All right, so you always put Mr. Slope Guy on the left side of the graph. Notice how every time I drew him, he's on the left side of the graph, except for undefined. Like I said, that one's tricky. But otherwise, he's always on the left side of the graph. And then it's really easy to tell if he goes down, negative. If he goes up, it's positive. All right. All right, for part 2 here, we're going to, we've now learned how to identify slope in its direction, right? And whether it's positive or if it's negative, a zero slope or an undefined slope. But now we're going to learn to identify its steepness. And we do that with a number, a ratio. All right, so the slope of a line can be written as a ratio between 2 points on the line. So the slope is the change in, whoops, let me get this. It is the change in y over the change in x. All right, and we'll talk about that quite a bit in this one, but another way to describe it is the rise over the run. And you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. The rise over the run. Rise over run, slopes are fun. You'll hear me say that a lot too, and you'll roll your eyes every time. All right, so let's find the slope of these given lines. So the first thing we're going to do is find the change in y. Now remember, y is our line that goes up and down. So the first thing we're doing is figuring out from one point of our line to another point of our line, how much is it having to go up or down by? Now, one really easy way to do this is to draw a line that connects one point to another point. So I make kind of a triangle. And now what I'm going to do is count how many boxes did I have to go down. So I had to go down from here. I went down 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went down 4. And if I go down, it means it's a negative. And then I had to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. And so my slope then, my rise over run, is -4 over 4. It makes a fraction. And with fractions, anytime we have fractions, we need to reduce fractions. We can't leave them as larger numbers. They need to be reduced down and simplified to its most simplistic form. So anytime you have a fraction with the same number, it just changes to a -1 over 1, or just a -1. All right, let's try one more. So from my left side, I go from my first point, and I go up and over to get to that second point. So this one, I'm going to count from my first point and figure out how many did I go up. So I went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went up 5, so that means it's a +5 because I went up 5. And now from this corner here, I have to go run 1, 2. So I ran 2. So my rise was 5 and my run was 2. Now we do not want to change our fraction to an improper or to a mixed fraction. We just want to leave it as an improper fraction. As long as we can't reduce it, then it's all done. So our slope for line B is 5 over 2. All right, guys, so our next slope here is for problem number C. And problem number C is one of these where we have this flat line. And if we remember back to Mr. Slope guy, the flat line means that the slope is 0. So we can just simply write for the slope that it is a 0 slope. All right, and then problem D. Problem D is our vertical line, the up and down vertical line. And when we have a vertical line, that means that our slope is undefined. So for these two, we won't have a number. For C and D, we won't have a number. We would just simply have those two words. Horizontal line is a 0 slope. Vertical line is undefined. All right, so let's take a look at problem E. And problem E, we're going to do the same thing that we did for A and B. So we're going to make that triangle. So we're going to start at our first point here on the left side, and we're going to go up, and then we're going to be getting to this second point. So then we'll go over until we get to that second point. So now we need to figure out what are our rise and our run. So in order to do this one, we started here and we had to rise 2. So that's a +2. And then we had to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I counted 6 boxes. So my rise was 2, my run is 6. So now I have to reduce that fraction. Anytime I have a fraction that can be reduced, I need to do it. I need to reduce it. So this fraction, both numbers are divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my slope for this one is 1 over 3. Rise 1. Run 3. And if you see, I'm going to just show you an example. You don't have to write this. But if you see from this point right here, I just put in green, I could rise 1 and then run 1, 2, 3. And I would get to another point on this line. So that's why that slope of 1/3 also works. All right. So let's try F, our last one. And so again, we're going to start from the point on the left, which is right here, and we're going to get to the point on the right, which is right there. So in order to do that, I need to go down 1, and I'm going to go over that many. So I'm going to go down 1. So when I go down 1 right there, that's a minus 1, right? Because I went down, so it's negative. And then I'm going to go over, run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I ran 5. So my slope was down 1 over 5. So my slope is a negative 1/5. All right, so that is the end of our notes for today. What I want you to do is submit these notes into Schoology, and then you're going to pull up today's worksheet. You're going to use these notes to help you complete today's worksheet, and then you'll submit that into Schoology as well. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow.